Welcome to Claiming Space, the podcast. I'm Gail Austin, an advocate for caregivers, a dreamer, an iPhone photographer, and a self confessed museum lover. Oh, and I'm the mother of two adult children, one who's disabled, and I'm her caregiver. As a caregiver, it took me some time to learn how to carve out space for me and to be okay with claiming my space. But once I did, this simple step allowed me to stay fueled, fulfilled, and replenished. Each week, I will share my stories, my journey, and ways I stay inspired as a caregiver. Join me for shared stories, connections, special guests, and inspiration. Welcome to episode 6. Do you know what it feels like to be invisible? Have you carried this experience with you throughout your life? I'm going to spend our time together sharing two stories about being invisible. You could call it the tale of two maids. Both of these instances happened when I was a teenager, and I was basically invisible. Take a listen and take what you need from this message. As a child, a Black child of the 60s and 70s, you learn to be invisible so you can survive. You learn to kind of shrink into the background, and it takes a lot to come out from behind that background. And once you do, it becomes really important that you present yourself in such a way that you don't offend anyone and you fit in. Which, when you think about that, it's ridiculous because then you can't be your authentic self, right? Because you're trying to fit in. Okay, so let's begin with the first story. I was about 15 years old, and it's also important for me to frame this story with a little background about my family. My mother, my uncle, my aunt, and my grandmother were all blue collar workers. My grandmother was a maid. My mother was a cook. My aunt was a seamstress. My uncle was a janitor, and he also reupholstered furniture. They worked long hours, and their sacrifice allowed the next generation the opportunity for a different future, including going to college or whatever we wanted to do. Most importantly, so we could follow our dreams. As I mentioned before, I lived in a town in the suburbs of Philadelphia, and I attended a top tier school system. So I was exposed to a lot of things, but I still, supported my family. My grandmother, who was a maid, was going to house sit for a family that was going out of town. And they had a new puppy that they didn't want to leave alone. And I volunteered to stay with my grandmother so she wouldn't be alone in the house with the puppy. Maybe because I probably wanted to play with the puppy. Who knows? Right? During our stay, as you can guess, puppies do what puppies do. And this puppy managed to chew a rug. Luckily, that was the only thing he did. Otherwise, it was a rather uneventful stay. When the family came home from their vacation, the wife turned to me and said, "Gail, when your grandmother retires, you can come work for us as our maid." Without any hesitation, I replied, "The only person's home I'm going to clean is my own." You see, my comment was not meant as disrespect. It was how I honestly felt. It was my first thought. Why am I going to clean your house? I was a little confused. It surprised me that she thought I couldn't want more. I couldn't dream bigger or think bigger or do bigger things for myself. It was the presumption that all I can ever achieve is to be a maid, even though I'm receiving the same education as her children. You see, I went to the same school as her children, but I was supposed to have limited dreams and goals. I think around that time, I wanted to be a lawyer. And I once told someone that I'm going to be a lawyer and one day I'm going to be the president of the United States. Big dreams for a little girl. But over time, my dream of being a lawyer changed and I dreamed of other things. And I wanted to be a writer or a dancer or travel the world. And still to this day, what is interesting about that story is my immediate response, because I didn't hesitate when I responded. I didn't even think about it. I just said, "No, I'm going to clean my own house." No disrespect meant to my grandmother. But in my mind, I was like, how dare you think that that's all I can achieve? So I'm going to wrap this first story. I would like to say to folks who are invisible and feel like people only see one thing about them, know that you're bigger than that, much bigger. You can achieve a lot more. You can achieve what your dreams are. Don't listen or take in the negative thoughts and comments. Okay, let's let's move on to my second story. One year, I did take a summer job as a maid to make some money, and I could make $20 a day doing a little lighthouse cleaning and laundry. Okay, this was like in the late 70s, so $20 a day for a little work was some cash. And I was like, "Cool, I can do that. Make me some money for the summer." And they also paid for my bus fare because back then you took the bus everywhere. And so I would take the bus from my little town and go about 5 towns away to my destination. Probably took 15, 20 minutes or so. It would take a lot longer to walk it. If you're not familiar with the suburbs of Philadelphia, Route 30 is the main drag that goes from Philly to Westchester. And there's a series of towns along the way. I lived in a town called Devon, and I was taking the bus down to a town that was near Bryn Mawr. You may have heard of Bryn Mawr. It's near Villanova, known for its college and hospital. Anyway, I was working for a couple whose regular person was out for personal reasons, which were never shared with me. Didn't really matter to a teenager. I was just like, get me this summer job, get me my cash so I can go spend it on something. Who knows what I was going to spend it on? This couple had a set of rules. And don't get me wrong, rules are important. I love me a good rule. I do. I really, really do. But that being said, these rules did enforce the invisible mindset. You came in, you put your stuff in the back room. You made lunch and you served them lunch on trays in their little living room area. You took your lunch in the kitchen behind a closed door. You quietly cleaned and stayed out of sight. You changed the sheets. You went down to the laundry room and washed clothes with the other working women. Now, I will admit it was a little awkward in the laundry room. I was younger and I couldn't relate to the women's conversations. So I kind of just stayed in the background and I stayed quiet. I guess the thing I took from these women, they were just trying to get by. And I couldn't really relate because I was still in high school and I saw this just as a temporary job. I didn't have bills to pay. I was just trying to make that summer cash, right? And the big lesson from this invisible situation was be quiet, fade into the background. Hmm, interesting. I'm sharing these two stories because the lessons that I took from them were really questions. Why be invisible? Why be quiet? There's so much out there, so much more to me. I was young, but I already had a sense of self and self worth. This is what, when you're educated, does for you. It makes you curious. You get questions, you challenge things because you're being taught to use critical thinking. So that's why it's so important. I learned to find my voice and I learned to speak up, but I also still respected my elders and their sacrifices. I realized I was not invisible. I wanted to contribute and I mattered. Even knowing that, those invisible moments still crop up. They show up in strange times when I want to sink into the background at a party or just go home. Just that introvert part of me that really is a large part of me comes out. But I'm sharing these stories not to say, hey, look, this happened to me. It's really not about that. I want to encourage you to know that you are more than what someone else thinks you are or what they see. What's so important is how do you see yourself? How do you want to see yourself? What do you want to achieve? That's what we all should be striving for. That what we all should be looking forward to, no matter our age. always looking for something to make a difference for ourselves, for the world, for the greater good. I remember once my son said to me, because I love dance so much, he was like, Mom, you can still be a dancer. And I thought, yeah, maybe. I don't think I had the body or the strength in my body to do that anymore. But it was nice that I taught him that you can still do it no matter what your age. You are limitless. That's something that I passed on to my children, that you can still be. Even my daughter, who's in a wheelchair and has limited communication, I see her for who she is and the joy she brings into the world. I don't have expectations that she's less than because of how she is. She's just who she's supposed to be. And she's making an impact in this world by being her. So I encourage everyone to be a little reflective sometimes. It helps. And think about the things that happened to you, but don't let them hold you back. And think about all the things that you wanted to do and try those things if you still can. And I will leave you with my intention phrase for 2025: be fearless. There's a lot of chaos right now, but I encourage you to be fearless. Thank you for listening to this episode, and please share this link with your friends. Rate the podcast and follow me on Instagram. And coming soon, as we've mentioned before, we will have the Claiming Space community on Patreon. The Claiming Space movement is here to support and provide a safe community where caregivers are acknowledged and seen.